Good morning, and welcome to All People's Church, Unitarian Universalist. My name is Michael Zepeda, and I will be co-celebrant for this morning's service. Our minister, Lori King Nelson, is not in the pulpit this morning, and we welcome fellow congregant and longtime church member, Dan Levine, who is offering today's sermon. If you've been here before, one time or many, you are welcome here. All People's Church is more than a place to gather on Sundays. It is a community, a spiritual home where you may develop and deepen your gifts. We gather to feed our minds and our souls that we may each become blessings to our families, to our friends, and to the larger world around us. If you're a visitor today and haven't signed in, please do so. There's a visitor's table by the front door, and signing in will give us the opportunity to acknowledge your visit and place you on our mailing list to receive the weekly emails and then the monthly newsletter. Before we continue our service, I have a couple of announcements. If you have been working on the Get Out the Vote postcard packets, they have a box out in the foyer in the lobby there to turn them in. I think stamping is next weekend, so you want to get those back in. And also, Church Council is scheduled a meeting at 12:30 after services. Lunch is provided. This is an opportunity for all the committee heads and groups to plan out the calendar for the church year. So please attend even if you're curious. And now we have opening music from Misha.
Our opening words are by the Reverend Cecil Williams. We come together this morning in acknowledgement of our need of one another. Some of us need to be heard, but have no one who will really listen. Some of us need to be loved, and some of us need to love. Some of us want to change, but it's too painful. Some of us are lonely, but afraid to tell anyone. Some of us just want to be ourselves, but we're afraid we won't be accepted as we are. Some of us want to make the world a better place, but feel weighed down by a sense of futility. Some of us don't even know what we need, but hope to find out here. We come together, sometimes in fear, sometimes in trust, sometimes in sorrow and pain, sometimes in joy, but always in hope and faith that we can help and strengthen each other in our quest for healing.
We now invite you to rise in body or spirit for the chalice lighting, our opening hymn, and the spoken affirmation. Cool.
Oh.
No, there we go. There we go. Our chalice lighting words are from the Reverend Marjorie Montgomery. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. And now we'll sing our opening hymn, which is our hymn for the month, number 368, Now Let Us Sing. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with one another. Thus do we covenant with one another. The young and the young at heart are invited. Ages delivered by our own Joe Burnham.
Yeah. So am I.
Yes.
Okay, so it's printed in black and white, so I did a little coloring. Good morning, everyone. Our story for all ages is called Pink is for Boys. Okay, pink is for boys and girls and bows and fancy clothes. Blue is for girls and boys, and it shows little people playing baseball. Blue. Very good, thank you. And yellow is for boys and girls and a crown to wear. Yellow. Thank you. Green is for girls and boys and the grass to run on. Green. Red is for boys and girls and cars that race along the track. Red. Orange is for girls and boys and popsicles. Orange. Purple is for boys and girls and unicorns. Purple. Brown is for girls and boys and teddy bears to cuddle.
Brown.
Black and white are for boys and girls and puppies and kittens to pet. All of the colors are for everyone, girls and boys.
Black and white.
And flowers and butterflies and rainbows in the sky. And all the colors are for everyone. Thank you. And thank you for helping me, Parker. That was wonderful. Thank you.
And let us sing the children out with our children's recessional, number 414. As we leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May the kindness which we learn light our hearts till we return. Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace, justice, love, and joy. That vision is embodied in congregations of all sizes. No matter its size, every congregation depends on each of its members, each one of you, by your commitment of time, energy, and resources, helps make that grand vision real. It is our custom to share the undesignated cash offerings that are collected each week. We do this on a quarterly basis for a nonprofit or charitable organization. Our Share the Plate recipient for the third quarter is Eastside Ministries. If you prefer, donations can be made using the QR code on the back of the order of service. The gifts of the congregation will be most gratefully received. Will the ushers please come forward? able to sing hymn number 23. We are only doing verses 1 through 5. Bring many names, beautiful and good, celebrating parable and story, holiness in
working night and day, planning all the wonders of creation, set each equation, genius at play. Hail and Hosanna, strong Mother God, glory Father God, hugging every child, feeling all the strains of human need. Disguises, glad of new surprises, wiser than despair. Hail and Hosanna, old aching God, young growing God, eager still to know, willing to be changed by what you've started, quick to be delighted, singing as you go. Hail and Hosanna, young growing God. My first reading is permitted to you by the Inc., which is Jessica Calarco, a sociologist, author of the book Holding It Together, How Women Became America's Safety. It is perfectly fine for girls to both want to be a mom and want to be an astronaut, or both want to be a great caregiver and also want to excel in the workplace. But for boys, it's only okay for them to pursue masculine pursuits. And parents are still deeply uncomfortable with the idea of letting boys play with dolls or pursuing traditionally feminine pursuits in those kinds of ways. It not only perpetuates the gendered hierarchy, this idea that masculine pursuits are more valuable or higher status than feminine pursuits, but it undermines the opportunities that boys and young men have to participate and to learn how to participate in a shared project of care. This encourages men to double down on this, to think, I only exist as a paid worker. I have to just focus on the achievements that I can make in society and the economy. And one of the problems with that is that it actually makes sexist thinking more appealing. Now, my second reading, much shorter, is from an op-ed by Nicholas Kristof in the New York Times earlier in this year. I worry that gender frictions may grow and add tension to modern life, leaving more people facing the world alone with no one to snuggle up to and provide long-term comfort. I fear that I'm a romantic in a world that's becoming less romantic.
In our service, We pause to honor and give time and attention to those things most important to us. We gather here for healing and for peace in our hearts and to honor our time together with the shared stories and news from the congregation. Each week, there is a journal outside the entrance to the sanctuary where you can write a message of memory or hope before the service. We honor these messages by lighting 3 candles here next to our chalice. Also, at any time during our service, you're welcome to come forward and light a candle here in our meditation center at the side of the chancel. In our book of memory and hope, we have been asked to remember our own Lori McKitka, who was bit by a raccoon this morning here at the church and is now going through a series of rabies shots. So, she apparently was trying to help the mother raccoon with the babies, and she did not appreciate that effort. So there we are. We do also ask that we please keep the Israelis and Palestinians in your mind for a resolution to their ongoing war. We pause at this time to hold and honor the sorrows and celebrations among us, some of which are deeply felt here but left unspoken. Let us pause for a moment of silent meditation and music.
I gave a sermon in this church on the roles of American men 38 years ago, July 27th, 1986. This was during a time of great excitement for the women's movement. Yes? I'm wearing I'm supposed to be getting the sound from the mic in my pocket. Sorry? Better here? I'm wearing it. All right. This was a time of great excitement for the women's movement and feminism. Women were just starting to break away from traditional domestic and subservient roles. Women were starting to get into professions like medicine, law, and clergy in larger numbers. They were increasingly owning homes and buying major items on credit. Now, how were men reacting to the liberation of women? Of course, there were many men who resisted the change in roles, being more comfortable in the traditional role of major breadwinner and supposed master of the house. Others went along grudgingly with the changed roles to accommodate their wives or girlfriends. But there were a substantial number of men who welcomed the change in roles. And without undue boasting, I count myself among that number. I felt that if women could get better jobs and have more self-respect, they would put less pressure on me to act confident all the time, even when I didn't feel confident. I would be more free to express emotions, including love, and even to cry sometimes. My earlier sermon was entitled, Closing the Gender Gap. You don't have to be Rosie Greer to cry. The idea was that Greer, a star NFL defensive lineman, went around saying it was okay for men to cry. But he, more than the rest of us, could get away with that because he had proven himself as a real man. Also, it'd be good to draw on a partner's income to supplement my own. I ended up not having children, but many other men felt that the feminist movement liberated them to be better and more involved fathers. In my earlier sermon, I quoted two business scholars, Chris Argyris and Donald Schoen, who found that workplaces where employees could show their feelings were actually the most efficient. Women entering workplaces had an advantage in coming from a subculture where expressions of feelings were accepted. But a smaller number of men were breaking away from the typical masculine competitive ways of communication and learning from the open, more typically female styles. We were discovering that male bonding over sports and cars was not satisfying enough, that we needed at least to share with other men our own experiences of the worlds of work and family. Also, we rebelled against the endless need to prove that one is a real man. Sometimes this meant being aggressive, and the need of male leaders to prove their manhood determined a lot of our foreign policy. But the traditional American standard of manhood is largely negative, avoiding behaviors that look either feminine or gay. My earlier sermon cited a feminist author named Gail Rubin, who described what she called the all-American not woman. Dour, unemotional, dresses drably in an invariable uniform, doesn't cry, can't take care of himself, can't cook, do laundry, take care of his living quarters, works like a dog at a boring job. Rubin added, wouldn't he be better off if he were free to be himself instead of being not feminine? That was then. How much has changed about gender roles between 1986 and 2024? In some ways, we've made a lot of progress. The continued strides of women in the workforce are well documented. Women make up more than half of several leading professions, particularly the younger members. For example, as of 2021, 37.1% of practicing physicians were women, and women were a majority in several specialties. Not just the typical niches such as OBGYN and pediatrics, but dermatology, endocrinology, and geriatrics. A woman won the popular vote for U.S. president in 2016, and another woman stands a strong chance of winning this year's election. Homosexuals of both genders have overcome their stigma and gained wide acceptance. Yet, it often seems that the more subtle form of liberation that straight males, particularly straight white males, need, has gone backward since the 1980s. It feels like it's okay in our society to show emotions and ask for help if you are male and gay, but not if you are male and heterosexual. Many straight men feel that the sensitive, liberated form of masculinity is not open to them. So they become more attracted to the more toxic forms of masculinity that may include wide use of guns, racism, and exploitation of women. That has made the gender gap in voting even wider than it was at the time of my earlier sermon. In the 1984 election between Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale, 61% of men and 57% of women voted for Reagan, a gender gap of 4%, although it was larger among some subgroups like Jews. In the 2020 election between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, Trump won men by a 53 to 45 margin, whereas Biden won women by a 57 to 42 margin, a gender gap of 11.5%. In his New York Times op-ed, Nicholas Kristof noted that the gender gap is not only in voting patterns, but in cultural outlook. This means that in the younger generation of his readers, there is less communication between men and women, less marriage, and less sex than in previous generations. Kristof noted that younger men, with the exception I later found out of gay men, are on the average less educated than younger women. Indeed, 58% of current college students are female. In 1970, it was about the reverse, with women gaining the majority somewhere around 1980. Kristof noted that younger and less educated men often blame feminism for whatever lack of success they have in life, and feel that the movement to advance the right of women and girls has gone too far. There's even a clinical condition, more common in men than in women, that involves inability to find the right words for describing one's own emotions or the emotions of others. An emeritus professor from the University of Akron, Dr. Ronald Levant, has studied this condition, which is called alexithymia, the lex being related to lexicon and lexicography, which deal with words. Alexithymics readily discuss and identify emotions that are positively related to society's masculine stereotypes, emotions such as aggression and lust, but they have profound difficulty with emotions that violate masculine stereotypes, such as sadness and even love. A recent book by Ruth Whipman mentions that girls in the last few decades have been encouraged to explore previously masculine pursuits like science, mathematics, and engineering, the so-called STEM fields. Yet only at very few schools have boys been encouraged to explore previously feminine pursuits, like the caring professions or simply recounting emotional reactions to events. The gender gap in understanding and the different binds society puts on men and on women can partly be traced to a zero-sum mentality, a belief that advancing one group in society will necessarily lead to oppression of another group. The zero-sum mentality is closely related to the prevailing economic philosophy of neoliberalism, the widespread belief in the sacredness of the market, which rewards people according to how hard they work. The strong acceptance of neoliberal economics leads the U.S. to have a weaker social safety net than much of industrialized Europe. Jessica Calarco's book documents how individual women in helping and caregiving professions, many of them also racial minorities, have substituted for government social programs. Many of the progressive movements that were spawned in the 1960s and 70s continue to be vital and have effects on social policy even if they don't win all the time. The women's movement, the gay rights or LGBTQ plus rights, and environmental movements are accepted parts of the social and political landscape. But the fledgling men's movement of that period is largely off the radar, even for liberals. Reviving the men's movement is key to social progress because it will lessen the attraction of straight white men to authoritarian strongman leaders. The movement of straight white males toward more caring connections is a needed ally of the women's movement and other groups that seek to expand human rights. Yet while the offspring of the early men's movement is not prominent in the general consciousness, it is far from dead. There's a significant group of scholars studying men and masculinities, including Dr. Levant, who studies alexithymia. And there's an international organization called Equimundo, EQUIMUNDO, www.equimundo.org, formerly Promundo, centered in Brazil. Equimundo promotes caring in men and partnership between men and women, seeking to overcome abusive or domineering patterns in the family and elsewhere. The opening statement on its website reads, "Gender equality needs men, and men need gender equality." The statement about gender equality is a perfect embodiment of UU principles. The second principle is justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Yet those values, and compassion in particular, are too often mislabeled by society as feminine virtues. They need to be relabeled as virtues for men as well as women. The third principle includes encouragement of spiritual growth. And for men, spiritual growth requires getting in touch with and not suppressing that part of them that has been called feminine. Equimundo's statement supports the contention of my 1986 sermon and the current one. It says that gender equality, with men yielding patriarchal dominance in favor of shared power with women, is not a sacrifice for men. Rather, it is clearly in men's self-interest. Partnership relations with women are more satisfying, more practical, and more fun than dominant subservient relationships. For men who are still trapped in the toxic paradigms of patriarchy, moving toward equality will require the courage to step outside their traditional comfort zones. But the rewards of those equal relationships will be worth the effort. So now the closing hymn is hymn number 1026, If Every Woman. And Misha will play it through once before we start singing it.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
We have a calling in this world. We are called to honor diversity, to respect differences with dignity, and to challenge those who would forbid it. We are people of a wide path. Let us be wide in affection and go our way in peace. The service has ended. We invite all to join us at this time for coffee and conversation in the library directly behind the sanctuary.